Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. I'm Michelle Klassen, and I'm on a Facebook Live for Soul Treats, and I'm so excited. Odysseus is with us this morning, and I have to tell you, I was telling him it's like the perfect timing that he's going to be discussing this topic called shadow awakening, because I know a lot of us have been going through this month, and some of us are thinking, what's wrong with us? Are we crazy? What's going on? But he's going to have some really great information. I do have to thank Zach Hader with United Healing Collective for introducing us. I'm just super excited about this topic, and I've been waiting like all month for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over, and I'm just going to have him take the show over. And thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And sorry we were a little delayed. We just had some technical difficulties, but we're on board now. All right. See you on the other side.
Cool. Thank you so much. Once again, my name is Odysseus Andrianos. And Michelle, thank you so much for that introduction. And so today we're going to have a very powerful topic. First off, I'd like to say that I'm very passionate about this topic. I really feel that the world is actually going through this beautiful awakening. And when I say awakening, the first step to actually go through that awakening is recognize that we're asleep. And when we go through that process, this is essentially what we talk about when we mention shadow work and shadow awakening. Now, personally, I went through my own experiences, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But the whole reason, my big why that I'm doing this work is my vision personally is to teach people how to become their own healer. Now, specifically what I mean by that is the word to heal means to make whole. And so it's recognizing parts of ourselves that we haven't acknowledged. And the deeper we go into that journey of acknowledging our inner wounds, it actually reveals our greatest truth. It actually reveals what's called our golden path. Now, what I do specifically to tell you a little bit more about myself is I blend shadow work with Dallas Alchemy. And I mold these two aspects of healing together, shadow work and Taoist alchemy, as I mentioned, to teach you how to become your own healer. Now, personally, I feel that the future of health, healing, medicine, and just really knowing ourselves is working with our emotions and our nervous system specifically. And personally, I've done 20,000 hours of coaching over 20 years. I got my degree in kinesiology, so I have a pretty keen understanding of Western perspectives on how the body works. And I built my own coaching facility, which I ran for 11 years. I also opened a second coaching facility here in Northern California with a $100 million a year company. Now, the truth is that the numbers don't really matter. What matters is the realization that I had as a coach. And that realization was for years, I started out much early on as a fitness coach. And I would have two people doing my coaching program. And some people would just take off and get great results, and some people wouldn't. At first, I was hard on myself. I was like, what am I doing wrong here? What can I change? How can I tweak my system? Which I did many times. But then it came to this point where I realized that people weren't struggling so much with diet or exercise. They were struggling with their mental and emotional health internally, and it was showing up externally as struggles with diet and exercise. So going through that realization, that's what actually got me into studying more about like how our emotions actually affecting our performance, more specifically on a conscious level, subconscious level, and unconscious level, which we'll get into more. I have a beautiful picture that I made for you guys today. And so the way that this works is that as you're able to begin to sift into your shadow and find repressed, suppressed, or denied emotions, and you're able to actually acknowledge them. So like an example of this, like say for like when you were a little kid, you had parents, we all had parents that some are better than others. But the truth is, it's really about the energy. And your parents, they used shame as a means of controlling you. Maybe you were out of line or something, and they would use shame. And as a little child, you're just seeking to be loved. And so what happens is a part of you on the subconscious or unconscious level will actually start to associate love with shame because you're just seeking to be loved and your parents keep shaming you. So you go, oh, shame equals love. So you become an adult and you're unconsciously seeking shame in your loving relationships. But here's the thing, you're doing it unconsciously. Now, one of my favorite analogies when it comes to shadow work, and we're gonna attack this from multiple angles, because I believe as a coach, even many years as a fitness coach, you want to have different ways of expressing things. It's like having a tool belt like Batman. You could pull out a ninja star or a grappling hook or whatever tool you need to work on yourself. So the more tools that we have, the better, and the sharper they are, the better as well. But there's this one analogy that I love. It comes from Debbie Ford's Dark Side of the Light Chasers, a great book. So if you ever listen to me, I'm always talking about all the books that I'm reading, but this great analogy that Debbie Ford mentioned is that it's like if you haven't done your shadow work, okay, when I say shadow work, we're going to get deeper into that, making the unconscious conscious. It's like you're carrying this big watermelon and you're walking around and you're trying to live your life. And even your friends are like, why, what's that thing that you're carrying? You're trying to just hide it. You don't want anyone to see it. And so like you're essentially wasting all this energy carrying all this baggage, but it's like this huge watermelon instead of just putting it down and setting yourself free. And people can see it. People can tell when you're carrying that baggage around. So the key thing to recognize here is like, how can you begin to acknowledge what's going on in your unconscious mind, bring it to the surface and heal it? Now, with that said, there's 3 stages to shadow awakening, okay? The first step is shadow work. It's acknowledging what repressed, suppressed, or denied emotions you have. Kind of like I said, shame, anger, guilt, sadness. And this all relates to Dallas philosophy too, which we'll get into. But as you do the shadow work, you get to acknowledge what's going on below the surface in your mind, recognize your triggers. Then you begin to move into the shadow integration process. So we have shadow work, and then we have shadow integration. When you begin integrating those aspects of yourself back into your psyche, the repressed guilt, anger, shame, and whatnot. And through that integration process, then you start to move into a shadow awakening. Now, when I say shadow awakening, I'm simplifying this. We're going to go into it more. Is that so you've acknowledged your shadow, you've integrated your shadow. Now it's time to awaken your shadow. What is that experience like to kind of go to the end, and we'll work our way back again. When you have an awakened shadow, you recognize your own triggers. You don't waste your emotional energy. You're no longer carrying around that watermelon. You're no longer allowing your past to create your future because you're so stuck in those old emotions that you've been carrying for many years, maybe even for generations within your own family. And the key thing that I love the most is once you've really integrated and awakened your shadow, you're able to recognize other people projecting their shadow onto you. That is absolute gold. And what I often tell people is that 90% of your shadow is pure gold. It's just the 10% of darkness that we sift through so you can access your inner gold. And when I say gold, like it literally is gold, because it's like in Western psychology, we call it disassociated aspects of our psyche, right? So like I said, it's like a part of ourselves. It's an energy, a frequency within ourselves that we've been suppressing. So like say a lot of people repress their anger. A lot of men repress their anger. Like we're told as little boys, like, you don't feel that anger, Johnny. It's not good for you. And so you're repressing your anger. And the more you repress it, the more it just wants to be expressed. And so as you begin to actually acknowledge, like, oh, I have this anger, you begin to work with it, then you're able to bring that energy back online instead of wasting it. And then when people trigger you, your anger doesn't come out in ugly ways. We even call it your inner demons, because the more you suppress it, it can show up in ugly ways. It's like you get triggered and you're like, you're so angry. You're making me angry. But the truth was you were actually holding on to the anger. And it depends on the situation too. But a big part of this is recognizing that you can integrate those aspects of your psyche back online and live a much more fulfilling life. Because like I mentioned, the more you repress it, the more you suppress it, it's going to keep showing up in ugly ways. Now, let me break down. I got my little notes here going over with you guys. So as we go through this process of shadow work, how does this relate to Taoist philosophy, Taoist alchemy? And I really got into Taoist alchemy in the last couple of years. And specifically, we talk about yin and yang energy. We're going to get into that more. But the key thing here is living a balanced lifestyle. Many people, like this is where it comes back to when I mentioned the emotions in the nervous system. They're so jacked up in their nervous system because they're always in fight or flight mode. And this is a lot of like really yang, masculine, doing energy. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're constantly in that energetic space, your nervous system cannot calm down. And that's more of your yin, feminine, intuitive nature by allowing the water to settle. Now, my analogy with that yang energy is like, it's like moving water. It's like constantly moving, right? Like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. But if we don't have time to let the water just settle, right? That's when we can actually, when the water is still, this feminine nature, we can actually see through the water. We can actually see what's going on below the surface. And because the water is still, we can see a reflection of ourselves that we may not have been able to see when we're constantly moving and busy. Now, me personally, like what was my experience going through understanding all of this? So like many years ago, I was running 2 coaching facilities. I was running a film studio. I was running an online business. And I was running an Airbnb. So like multiple businesses, and I was very successful. I was making good money. I was helping lots of people. And so like often our shadow will, like what we call our positive traits, is our shadow hiding right in front of us. So I was so busy making money, helping people. I was like, oh, this is all working out great. But I was repressing my own emotions. I was repressing my own shadow. And I was actually burning myself out. I was just in fight or flight mode all the time, managing 40, 50, whatever clients all by myself. So going through that realization, we often say in the coaching industry, your mess becomes your message. So going through that process and the realization that I was in my yang energy and just constantly doing and doing and doing, and not giving myself the time and space to feel and like really feel into those emotions. My personal story is that I started to realize, oh, I had this repressed anger. And as I began to acknowledge that anger, I got to be able to like recognize, oh, I'm triggered externally, and then like what's really going on internally. As I work with the anger, kind of like I mentioned, like your positive traits, like, oh, I'm so busy, I'm doing those things. I was repressing my anger, but when I got into the anger, I actually found there was fear. Once I got into the fear, I started again to work with my abandonment from my childhood. And when I say abandonment, my father worked in the film industry, so he was gone a lot as a child. I have an amazing father. We have a great relationship, and I've talked with him about all this stuff. He's actually helped me record some of my videos. I actually have a video course on shadow work, and called Shadow Awakening. And talking with my father about it, and it's like specifically like coming back to like the shadow awakening process. The goal is that once you start to learn how to apply this information to your life, you not only heal yourself, but you heal other people around you, because now I'm able to have tougher conversations about my own trauma with my father. I'm able to have tougher conversations about my own trauma with my mother. And by opening up those conversations with them, it's allowed them to heal as well too. And this is where it literally is priceless, the healing work that can be done. Remember I said earlier, to heal means to make whole, because how can you be a totally complete human being when you're repressing and suppressing aspects of yourself, when you're disassociating with parts of yourself? It's like one of the things that I've discovered in my own studies. I'm like a super nerd. I have an awesome library, but is that we have like a pie chart, and like there's this one little sliver, and you're like, this is who I am. It's like, that's a sliver of who you are. This is what I'm so fascinated about the coaching industry and supporting people and really understanding the depths of who they are. It's like who you think you are is like a sliver of the pie. When you actually get into the psychology, understanding your psyche, understanding how your mind, your body, and your heart work together, you realize you have a lot more power than you actually realize. Now, with that said, let me get a quick little sip of my drink here. I drew you a lovely picture. Drew a lovely picture for you. So hopefully you guys can see this. Got a little glare here with my light back here. Maybe adjust that. So we got this. Yeah, there we go. You can see me. I'll move it around. So we got this analogy here. I just wanted to draw you a picture so I could show off my artist skills with the whiteboard pen. So essentially, this is how it works. I teach this to every single person when I first start coaching. This is like freaking gold. I've got multiple coaches who are like, oh my God, this is a genius way of explaining this. So enough of me bragging. Let's get into it. We have the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the unconscious mind. All right. Now, the way that this works is that many people, they're attempting to accomplish their goals. They're on this boat. This is you. Maybe you're a female. We'll give you a little bit of nice, pretty hair. There you go. You look beautiful. And so you're on this boat and you're rowing towards your goal. Okay. Consciously, you're this goal, this island destination. You want to lose weight, get in shape, make more money, attract true love, live the life of your dreams, whatever it is. Okay. This is your goal. Put a G here. All right. So you're like, I'm exercising, I'm eating healthy, I'm like doing all these things, like I'm doing my Pilates, all this good stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. But the key thing here is that you could be consciously doing everything perfectly, but if the subconscious mind is going against you, it's going to be very difficult to accomplish your dreams. Now, as I said, I've been coaching for 20 years, 20,000 hours of coaching. Once I started getting clarity, like especially when I started in fitness, I was like, I could teach you how to do all the most beautiful squats in the world, right? Make your booty look all great, but it's not your butt that matters. It's the crap inside your head. And when I say the crap inside your head, it's what's going on these different levels. Now, that was a little tangent, but let's come back to this. What's going on subconsciously? If you have subconscious beliefs of, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy of love, money doesn't grow on trees, my feelings aren't valid, and all these different emotions that are showing up below the surface, creating these limiting beliefs, you can still get to your goal, but you're going to waste a tremendous amount of effort. It's going to be very difficult for you. And that's the thing I love about being a coach and supporting people and teaching them how to get clear on what these things are that are going on below the surface. Right? I mean, like your subconscious mind only works on images. So like some people, they can just watch this and start to look at themselves like, what is going on below the surface? Remember how I said your yin, your feminine nature? Sometimes this water is just moving too much. You got to let it calm down a little bit so you can see what's going on below the surface. Because what you can do is you can change the subconscious mind, and then the current will take you to your dreams with less effort. Okay, this is why I became a coach, to make this journey to accomplishing your dreams much easier, because a lot of us we're not aware of how our subconscious mind affects us. Now, this is just the beginning, guys. We also have many people in society, like, oh my God, like this is why I'm so keen to get this information out there. We have people who are sitting on the back of this boat looking at their past. They're like, oh my God, look at the wake. Look, when I was 5, my dad beat me. My mother didn't love me. Or this happened. I had a friend who wasn't nice to me. And they're sitting on the back of this boat. My pen's starting to die. And they're sitting on the back of this boat, back of the pen, locked and loaded. And so they're like, oh, well, like their mind is still it's here. Their mind isn't even like going towards the destination. So the boat's just floating off course, because they're like, I'm so traumatized from my past. I am. People begin to identify with their past. Like, I am my trauma. But it's like, it's actually happening subconsciously. But essentially, the way it actually shows up is you're up here, you're just staring at your past. And the boat's complete, like, why can't I accomplish my dreams? Like, no one ever taught you how your mind works. Like, I had to apply this to myself, and it's worked phenomenally. But now I'm teaching to other people. It's like, you're like exercising really hard. You're doing all these things consciously. You're like, trying to lose weight. It's like, but what's going on below the surface? Now this goes even deeper. Some people aren't just sitting on the back of the boat using their past to create their future. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this too, right? When you're utilizing your past to create your future, you're just going to keep reliving your past. Specifically, when you have emotions that get triggered, you just keep falling back into those old stories. Now, like I said, this goes a little bit deeper. Many people, they're not only sitting on the back of the boat, they've thrown an anchor into the water, or multiple anchors. And those anchors have hooked onto this rock in the unconscious, deep below the surface. It's like the iceberg theory. There's like, what's above the surface is the conscious, what's below the surface, subconscious, and deep, that's the depths of the iceberg, right? So it took out the Titanic. And so you have this anchor latched on this rock, and you're sitting on the back of the boat, and the boat's just going in circles, and you're wondering, why can't I make the money that I want? Why can't I attract the life of my dreams? Why can't I find true love? It's like, it comes back to my story. If you grew up like associating love with shame, no wonder you're not attracting true love. The boat's just going in circles because on an unconscious level, you're associating shame with love. And that's essentially the first, like whenever I coach anybody, I go over this, and I just love drawing pictures for you guys. But this is essentially what it comes down to, is like, your subconscious mind only works on images. So you can begin to look, it's like, well, where am I stuck? A lot of like the first step and the last step that I always tell people when it comes down to great coaching or just working on yourself, it's all about awareness. The first step is awareness of what triggers are showing up. What meaning am I creating from those triggers? What emotions are showing up from those triggers, and what behaviors am I creating? Trigger, meaning, emotion, behavior. Because many people, they get triggered and they go right to the same old emotion and right to the same behaviors. They don't even pay attention to the meaning. Very crucial point there, because as we begin to get more clarity, right, getting more clarity about what's going on, just want to keep showing off my picture, what's going on below the surface, where am I on this boat, right? Because so many people in society, they're struggling because they're taking their knowable past and creating their future. Now, this isn't like entirely their fault, because, and it's nobody's fault. Nobody's taught this stuff. Like, if I had known this back in the day, it would have helped me like immensely with like recognizing my own inner trauma, my own inner suffering, and how to utilize my emotions. Like, either you're using your emotions are using you. And the more you suppress, repress, and deny them, the more they're going to take you off course. Now, with that said, another quick sip of my drink. As I get this clarity around those different levels of the brain, the next thing that's so crucial, and I'm just like giving you guys some of my gold nuggets that are so like, it takes time to like integrate this stuff. Just like, it's like you don't just do one workout and you're fit. You know what I'm saying? It takes a little bit of time. Pulling out my whiteboard again, is that many people, they're stuck in what's called this linear model of consciousness. It's very masculine. Okay, and I want to say, like, there's nothing wrong with masculinity. Nothing wrong with the yang energy. But most of society is too much in this yang energy. The yin energy is essentially, it's the dark side of the yin and the yang, but it's the feminine, and it's extremely powerful, right? It's essentially once you get down below the surface here. But this is like a 3D linear Newtonian Cartesian Newtonian model of consciousness. Well, it's like particle based. It's like quantum mechanics, quantum physics. Now, many people, they're so dense, literally, because they're like, this is who I am. I identify with my past. My knowable past is who that I am. I can never change it. This is who I am. It's like hormonal and neurologically programmed into their psyche. And then like, they're like, that thing makes me angry. That thing makes me sad. That thing, it's like it's always outside of them. This is when the ego is in this, like, you're like in this false light, 3D linear, my past is creating my future. And there's nothing can change. And it's creating depression, anxiety for people. Like, I need to take another pill because I can't heal. When in reality, they can actually learn how to operate from a quantum model of consciousness, which is more wave-like. Ironically, we have this wave, which is quantum. Let's put quan, right? It's kind of like the waves down here. Oh, you guys see where I'm getting at? So when we move to this quantum, right, we have the 3D. This is like Newtonian. It's like this is programmed into our psyche, this 3D model of consciousness. And most people are unconscious to the fact that they're creating their future based upon their past because they weren't taught a lot of the stuff that I'm sharing with you guys. And once you shift into this quantum model of consciousness, there is infinite possibilities available to you. Let me say it again. Infinite possibilities available to you. Because what you can do is we shift your frame of reference. You know, a lot of this has to do with your ability to understand your mindset. Okay? Is that instead of you like being back here in the back of the boat, you put your mind and you set it on this future goal. And what you do is you imagine, who were you before you accomplished that goal? I'm going to say it again. Who were you when you accomplished that goal? And you set your mind in that space. Let's say you want to lose 20 pounds. Well, what would it feel like? You just lost 18 pounds. What would your life be like? And then you start to put that image in your subconscious mind, right? Give you some of my gold nuggets that I teach in coaching. And you begin to like really deeply get your mind, your body, your heart, your soul, your spirit into this space where who you were just before you accomplished your goal. And now the subconscious mind begins to become totally aligned. All of a sudden it's easier to exercise. It's easier to eat healthy because we've set that mind, we put it in that space where you're now, the current is taking you to where you want to go because now you're operating from a quantum mindset. There's infinite possibility available to you at any moment. Imagine a tree with an infinite number of branches going off in every single direction. That's essentially what a quantum mindset is. And like the world, we're actually in a quantum like reality right now, but people are just addicted to this 3D linear model of consciousness. I'll give you an example of how it worked for me. So years ago, I opened my first coaching facility, not here in Novato, California, Marin County. And I was doing great. I was making good money. I was really happy. I was like, man, I want to open a second gym. And I was really in my yang energy, like really controlling. I have to do it like this. I have to do it like this. It's like years passed. It just didn't happen. And then all of a sudden I was like, I got to shift my energy. Because the key thing here, I always say, time backwards is emit, because it's really about your energy. You live 100 years, you're miserable. Great life, bro. I'd rather live 50 and have it be amazing. But I realized, I was like, this isn't working for me. So like, I didn't even really understand like yin and yang energy at that time as much as I do now. But I started just surrender. And part of the word surrender is to render. And that's part of like the feminine power is to surrender. And in that space, I started meditating, calming my energy down, calming my nervous system down, calming my emotions down. And then within a few months, one of my clients came to me. It's like, and she said, do you want to help me open a corporate gym? And I was like, yeah, that's a lot easier than me going to opening my own facility. And then I was able to literally double my income, help more people, and work with one of the largest female-owned corporations in the Bay Area. And I still work with them today. So the key thing here is like, I had to go through this journey myself to realize like, oh, I'm just too active. I'm too much in my yang. I'm controlling too much. And then when I surrendered, like I said, part of the word surrender is to render. Things started to just show up for me, right? Part of yin energy is that it's magnetic. Masculine energy is electric. Feminine energy is magnetic. And whether you're a male or a female, you have these energies within you, masculine and feminine energy. It's not about being too much in one or the other, but in general in society, we're too much in our yang energy. It's like we're all trying to show off our male peacock feathers. Everyone look at me, right? But the truth is, we have to look within ourselves to do our inner healing work. This is what I mean by shadow work. And I love that this program is called Soul Treats, because to me, it's like your soul, when it comes to shadow work, it's like digging into the soil, which is kind of like the word soul. When you dig into the soul, or your soil, kind of the same word, you can plant a seed into that darkness and grow an entirely new reality. Just like I mentioned, imagine a tree with an infinite number of branches growing in every different direction, right? So sometimes we're like we're so like above the surface. We're just up here and we're like, why aren't the branches growing? Why aren't the branches growing? What about the roots? Go into the darkness and allow the roots to grow, right? And as the roots grow, then the tree will grow in an infinite number of ways because you went into the darkness. So let's go a little more into how to like work with this darkness. So when I say that this dark space, when we work with the unconscious mind, remember we were talking about stuff down here. I keep showing you guys my fun picture. Those anchors, you can't see that stuff. So this is why it helps to hire a coach or a therapist or somebody who really knows how to work with the shadow or trauma, because it's not logical when you get into that space. That's why personally I teach breath work, meditation exercises to get you out of the logical, that yang energy, active mind, constantly trying to control, and you're able to surrender into that intuitive space. And in that intuitive space, this is where working with the shadow, it's like abstract art. It's like a blob or a shape. It's like a melting clock. It's not like your logical mind's trying to analyze everything, but that's not where you're going to heal. It's really when you get into that emotional space, when you recognize what emotions am I holding on to below the surface in my mind. And as you work in that abstract space, remember I said time backwards is emit, because it's really just about our energy. And as we begin to recognize, okay, I'm holding on to this energy, you begin to sit with it. Let me say it again, sit with it. What I like to say is, like, when you're working with your shadow, it can be like visiting a young Bruce Wayne. If you've ever seen Batman, Bruce Wayne, when his parents died, and imagine how traumatized he was. And so some of our deep inner wounds are kind of like that. I've worked with people who have all kinds of like mental abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, like from years and years past. And so a big part of this is to be able to sit with those parts of yourself that you've disassociated from, that wounded inner child within yourself. And this is where you cannot rush the process. I cannot emphasize that enough. You know, like I'm really good at getting on here and talking about all this stuff, but when I work with people specifically, we move at their pace. It's like, hey, how do we acknowledge this part of ourselves, just sit with it and let it, you kind of negotiate with it. And so your shadow, if you haven't done shadow work, you have this like inner saboteur just sabotaging you. You keep attracting those people who shame you. You're like, I'm going out and finding a loving relationship. You're getting shamed again. Or you're going out and you're using your baggage from your past to create your future. And so as you begin to work with that shadow, that energy, and integrate it back online, now you actually set yourself free. And that's where it comes back to like that yin energy, because you've actually acknowledged that energy, right? And you've shifted it. Now you can attract new things into your life. Sometimes in order to like call in new energy, you have to let stuff go. And until you let it go, you're not going to attract that new energy into your life. So this is part of the surrender. Like personally, I just got rid of like a third of all of my stuff, because I'm loving all this Taoist philosophy in terms of like just energy. Like the less stuff I have, the less stuff I have to worry about. You know, like I grew up here in Marin County, the Bay Area, a lot of very wealthy people, which isn't good or bad, but you know, like sometimes wealth, you have all this money, and like now you can eat as much food as you want, you can drink as much alcohol, you can use as much drugs, and you're what you call like I said, your shadow, because sometimes your positive trait, like, oh, you have all this money, you can buy all these things, but then it's amplifying your shadow that you didn't acknowledge. So now you're overeating, you're overusing drugs, you're watching too much TV, and you're not actually facing your deep inner emotions. And so that's a big reason why I love teaching this stuff, because as we surrender into that yin energy, then we can magnetize a new reality for ourselves. Kind of like I said with my story, once I calmed my energy down, then I started attracting my dreams with less effort. So I'm living proof of this. I'm living proof, guys. This is, you know, but the key thing here is to recognize, where's your energy at? If you take anything away from my presentation today, is like, how can you create more awareness? Recognize, what are your triggers? When you get triggered, what's the meaning that you're creating? When you get triggered, like somebody says something, it's like something that doesn't feel right. Like, what's the meaning? Once you get into that meaning, then you can begin to shift those emotions. And like I said, then the behaviors begin to shift. Because if you're not paying attention to that, it's going to take you completely off your course, or off course. So I want to touch a little bit more on the yin and yang energy, because it's such an important topic. I actually did a presentation on this last week in my group coaching program. So like the yang energy and the yin energy, when we're in that yin space, like another great analogy of it is like, imagine being in a river and you're clinging to this rock because you're like, this is who I am. Like, I have to be this person. And like this water is just flowing. it's flowing. You're like, no, I have to stay this way that I am. Kind of like you're sitting on the back of this. I am this traumatic past. I identify with the wounds. I'm a victim. I'm a victim. And you're just like in your mind, like you somehow you have to stay that victim because you identify so much with being that victim. And you're clinging to this rock, and then all of a sudden you just let go, and you just let the water take you to where you were always meant to be. This is like, it's like almost like a magnet, because once you let go, it magnetizes you to where you were always meant to be. This is where like getting support to go through this process is so crucial, because people identify so much with who they are, and they don't have the tools to actually create that shift and actually feel safe going through that surrender process. Because like I said, often people, when you haven't acknowledged your shadow, which I was saying this earlier about your shadow being your saboteur, is that once you actually do the shadow work, coming back to the shadow awakening stuff, your saboteur becomes your guide. That part of you that was like, you're not good enough, you're not worthy of love. It's like, I like this analogy. It's like, you hear that voice, and it's like you have a flashlight, and you like turn around and you shine it into your shadow, and your shadow goes, ah, you saw me. You're not supposed to pay attention to me. You've been ignoring me for years. And you go, shadow, what do you need? It's like, I just want you to sit with me and love me. I'm just like the little boy within you that was like told not to feel anything. Like, and this happens. Like one of my friends, she was just telling me that she works at a school, and already like 5-year-old boys are being told to numb their emotions. Right? It's nobody's fault. This is part of our society's awakening. But that part of you is like, oh, I just want you to sit and listen to me and just be with me for a little bit. And it's like, you're like, okay, shadow. And like, this is the part that takes time. And you start talking with the shadow. What does it need? What are its wants? What are its needs? How can you negotiate with it? And then as you do that, you shine that light into that part of yourself and that voice. You're not good enough. You're not good enough. I've coached multimillionaires. I'm not good enough. There's some part of them that they need to work with. Then the saboteur becomes your guide, because you've acknowledged this part of yourself that just always wanted to be loved. This is like where it's almost like a blend of like inner child work with shadow work. It's like there's just different ways of expressing this, right? And like I said earlier, like the more tools you have, the better. I often tell people when I'm teaching them shadow work, is that I give you the tools. I show you where to dig, how to dig, what's going to come up when you're digging. But the digging you must do yourself, right? At the end of the day, it's going to be you when you're alone and your stuff's coming up, and you're able to like just really sit with yourself. Just really sit with yourself. And that's where, like I said, it's surrender. It's the yin energy. Can you allow yourself to calm down enough to where your nervous system's going to be calm, and that inner voice can just rise to the surface? You can begin to negotiate with that part of yourself. If this sounds weird, if it sounds abstract, it's because a lot of the stuff that I'm teaching, it's been taboo. I mean, it's only been in the last 100 years that we're teaching shadow work. Like 100 years ago, it was only taught in mystery schools. And once I started realizing the power of this, right? It's like, okay, I could teach you how to get in shape. Like my degree in kinesiology is in nutrition and health, so I blend fitness and nutrition coaching with my coaching. But like that part's easy. The exercise and nutrition. Like I'm coaching a doctor right now, and he said like a lot of people, they're struggling with their health because they're not exercising, eating healthy. But that really comes down to their mind and their emotions. And I always say, like, specifically our mind and our emotions, like our mind and our body, our heart is our bridge between our mind and our body. And what's the leading killer in America? Heart disease, because we're not listening to our hearts. And growing up, my father, I believe I mentioned he worked in Hollywood. He was a sound mixer, and he always told me that the word heart, the center of the word heart is ear. If you take your two ears and put them together, they're in the shape of a heart. And we've been so busy, and we're so much in our heads that we've disconnected from our hearts. This is why we have so much heart disease. This is why this is a personal opinion. And not feeling our emotions. Let me say, not feeling our emotions. How many people in society are dying inside because they're not feeling their emotions? Is that when we actually begin to acknowledge these repressed, suppressed, and denied aspects of ourselves, we can actually shift that energy, because it's actually stuck in our physiology. A lot of these diseases, like I mentioned, heart disease, but like types of cancer, like my mother had cancer and she healed a couple of years ago. She's doing much better. But like rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, like you go to the doctors for those and like certain types of cancer, like, well, what's the cause, doc? And they're like, we don't know. And like, this is a personal opinion. I really believe that it's repressed emotions stuck in our joints, stuck in our bodies. And that's, the more we don't acknowledge it, we like, you go to a doctor and say like, oh, like I'm feeling anxious. They just give you a pill. You know, there's different doctors. I want to like hate on all doctors, but We need to have more conversations about what's going on in your shadow, what's going on in your psyche, learning how to apply tools such as shadow work so you can like heal yourself, like genuinely. Like that's the whole reason I'm doing this, is teaching people how to become their own healer. And just to go a little bit more into like Dallas Dallas Alchemy, this is a picture of the 5-element theory. We won't get into this too much, but essentially what I really love about Dallas Alchemy, I just love showing off my art. This is art show and tell for me. So with Dallas Alchemy, there's what's called the 5-element theory. And I'm just going over like a range of tools that I utilize to help my clients to become their own healers. And so this is ancient philosophy, ancient Taoist philosophy for healing. So what you can do is you can figure out there's 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. And so you can recognize where you have like an imbalance. So like, I know you guys can't see this probably that well, but like wood feeds fire, fire feeds earth, earth feeds metal, metal feeds water, water feeds wood. And so what happens also is like water controls fire. Okay, so we have like a generating principle and a controlling principle. And like, I don't expect you guys to get this in like these few seconds. The key point here is to recognize where you have imbalances. Like if you have too much wood, like it has to do with liver. Like you can actually discover what your dominant element is. If you have interest in this, message me, check me out. I can help you discover what your dominant element is. So like an example, I'm the wood element. It has to do with your liver. And there's a yin and yang organ based upon each element. And so that has to do with anger and your liver. And so I have like once you figure out what your dominant element is, you can actually begin to recognize what your strengths and your weaknesses are. We'll go over a couple more of these. So like water has to do with fear and your kidneys. All right. The metal element has to do with your lungs. It has to do with grief. So like if you're holding on to a lot of grief, you'll feel it in your lungs. People like sometimes you don't know, like, why am I not healing? The earth has to do with anxiety. It has to do with your stomach as well, being grounded. So a lot of people, one of the things I love that I discovered in Chinese medicine or Taoist medicine is that a lot of people, they're gaining weight because they're using food, the earth element, as a false way of grounding themselves. Let me say it again, a false way of grounding themselves. And I loved hearing that because like, as I mentioned, I got my degree in kinesiology with emphasis in nutrition. I've helped people lose thousands of pounds all over the world, and I never heard of that, but it makes perfect sense. People, they haven't done their inner work, so they're like eating, and it's like a way of coping with the fact that they haven't done their inner work. They haven't faced their emotional pain. They have anxiety showing up, so they're feeding themselves. I've been there too. I remember years ago, I snapped my Achilles tendon. And I was in bed and I was stressed and I wasn't grounded, so I was eating too. And the key thing here is not to feel bad about it. It's to recognize what are the causes creating the effects. So I just touched on that. This is a very deep subject. Hopefully we can go into that a little bit more. But the key thing I kind of wanted to finish up here is the causes creating the effects. So I know a number of of doctors, healers, coaches who talk about how in Western medicine, it's often dealing with the effects. Okay, so like, oh, you have this symptom. Let's do this to work with the effects. Like a great example of this is, maybe you have back pain. And so like you're going to the doctor, you're getting some drugs, you're going to the chiropractor, you're getting adjusted, which is that's totally fine. It's awesome that you're doing that, but you're just dealing with the effects. If you have like back pain because your shoulders are hunched over, because your heart is like caved in, because you have some emotional trauma and you have no one to talk to about how to heal that emotional trauma, you're going to keep dealing with the effects, like the physical effects. But in reality, like most chiropractors and doctors, they aren't going to go like, well, what's going on emotionally for you? And like start actually acknowledging the emotional pain, because you're going to keep dealing with the effects until you deal with the cause. Then you're not going to see a real shift. I love this great analogy where when you deal with the effects and not getting to the root cause, remember I thought it's kind of like the tree analogy. There's all these branches, but they're not growing. It's like you got to get to the root cause, grow those roots, and the tree will blossom, right? There's this analogy, that was one analogy, going to another one, is that when you deal with effects and not the causes, it's essentially like a lot of you people are doing this, kind of coming back to my boat analogy. It's like essentially you're rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. You're like, let's move the deck chairs over here. Wow, it looks so nice. Oh my God, it looks great. It's like you're just dealing with the effects. The Titanic's going to go down. Nice deck chair setup, bro. Like I'm making a joke, but when you just deal with the effects, you're not really changing anything. right? This is like a lot of Western medicine. I'm not completely against Western medicine. It's great in the short term if you have an emergency or something, but in the long term, I really believe we need to harmonize Eastern and Western philosophies, because rearranging the deck chairs ain't going to stop the Titanic from going down. If you have some unconscious beliefs and you're anchored into your past and you don't know how to work with those emotional pains, and once you finally do that, then you can live the life that you've always dreamed. You can live literally, like I said, attract abundance. You can manifest your dreams like a magician. That's what I like to say to people, because it literally is like magic when you're able to remove those inner blocks, to recognize the depth of love you can have for yourself, the depth of abundance that you can manifest in your life. Once you remove those blocks, getting honest about your pain. I love this one quote by Rumi. Your wound is where the light enters. I'll say that again. Your wound is where the light enters. And so as you're able to acknowledge that inner emotional pain and actually go into it, like dig into it, and I recommend getting support. If you need any help, please contact me. My website's on the bottom of the screen here. Once you get into that space and set yourself free, like I said, it's like dropping that watermelon. It's like dropping these anchors, and the current starts taking you to where you were always meant to be. Because once you do that, not only do you improve your own life, you improve the lives of everybody around you, your friends, your family. They can actually notice your energy. Because like I said, time backwards is emit. It's really about getting your energy right. And there's such a wide range of tools that have been forgotten in ancient philosophy. And so that's my whole vision, is blending this shadow work, blending this Dallas alchemy, and harmonizing the two to teach other people how to live that balanced yin and yang energetic frequency within their lives, because everyone is so worth it. And this is the real end goal, is to move humanity from this unconscious kind of trauma-based society where people are living in so much fear to a conscious trauma-informed society where people vibrate from a frequency of love, compassion, and gratitude. And we all have that capacity within us. And one of my favorite pieces with shadow work is that this is like my absolute the biggest reason why I'm doing this. If I had billions of dollars, I'd still be teaching this, because each person that does their shadow work, they heal the collective shadow of humanity. And actually, that's not even my opinion. I've read that in multiple books. So that's essentially like where humanity is. We're in this, I guess you call it, dark night of the soul. And a lot of people, like in the spiritual community, are like, oh, we got to wake people up. It's like, it's like I'm talking about people being like light workers and these sorts of things. It's like, really, we're working with the darkness. And the more we can acknowledge and go into that darkness and realize how asleep we are. And I'm still working on myself too. Like, I'm not sitting here like, you guys all have to work on yourselves. Like, I'm constantly going deeper into this process myself, because I feel like this is the soul healing that we need to do. This is the soul treats. We have to love ourselves. We have to treat our soul right. And well, I'll finish with this one point where the difference between Eastern and Western medicine, Western medicine, allopathic medicine, it's like using all these pills and drugs and all these things to heal you. Eastern medicine, it's really just about reconnecting you to your soul. And that's essentially why I do this work. So with that said, check me out, odysseymentorship.com. I have a YouTube channel, Odyssey Mentorship. Check me out on TikTok or Instagram. I am Odie1 Kenobi. my dad worked on Revenge of the Jedi back in the day, so that's where I get the Odysseus Kenobi. I have a book coming out called Shadow Awakening, and I have a video course, and I just launched retreats. I got all kinds of fun stuff going on. So if you want to learn more, you want to work with me, if you need support, if you know somebody else who needs support, I'm always willing to jump on a call with anybody, give them some of my time, and spread love like butter across the world. Thank you so much, Michelle, for having me on today. And
you're welcome.
Any
I don't know if you were able to see some of the messages here. Zach is on, and he says, we have to treat our soul right. I love it. Melissa was saying that she needed to hear this. She says we need to take care of the body, the mind, body, and soul. And she especially said she needed to hear this right now. So, and Carol Jacobs was saying, yes, love what you're saying. And we had a few more there. So thank you so much for such valuable information. There's so many people that are needing this. And yes, his website is scrolling across the page there. So please get connected. And if you have any more questions, or if you'd like to join one of his programs, I highly recommend it. And just thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Zach, again, for introducing Odysseus to Soul Treats. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to maybe doing another live with another subject, because I know like, I'm just sitting here with your energy, and you've got so much information. It's incredible, truly incredible. So I'm going to end the broadcast now. Melissa says, thank you so much for your energy and time. And just a big shout out to everyone. Thank you so much for supporting the Soul Treats page. It keeps growing and growing. We do have a website now, so if you want to check it out. I just so much gratitude and appreciation for you being here. And I will continue to do my best to bring you more and more people. If you take a look at the events page on the Soul Treats Facebook page, you'll see that month is complete. The May month is completely booked already, and we're going to be heading into June. Also, I might be doing some evening stuff on Soul Treats, doing the weekend and maybe just a couple of days during the week, some evening stuff, because I know some people can't be there for the weekend, but they can do the evening. So I want to support you as much as I can with what is needed. So Odysseus, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everyone. I love you, everyone, and have a wonderful day. I'm just going to end the broadcast, and it'll be just a moment. Odysseus, I'll see you on the other side.
Toodaloo.
Thanks, everybody.